You don't really want this job. I can tell from your resume and your energy. You're overqualified, sure, but you have that unmotivated vibe. Someone like you would just waste our client's time." Marcus Halverson's voice came through my laptop speaker with the casual cruelty of a man who'd made a snap judgment and was now performing certainty to disguise the fact that he had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. I was sitting in my home office, waiting for him to listen to my pitch about why I was interested in the executive coaching position his firm was recruiting for, and instead I was getting a masterclass in how to dismiss someone in exactly 45 seconds. "I'm going to be honest with you, it's not a good fit. You're probably overqualified anyway. You'd get bored. You'd leave in 6 months. I'd rather not waste either of our time." He hung up without giving me a chance to respond. I sat in the silence that followed and stared at my laptop screen, at the sudden blank space where his video feed had been. My hand was still on the mouse. My notes about why I was genuinely interested in this position, the emphasis on mentorship, the focus on sustainable leadership development, the company culture that prioritized work-life balance, were still open on my other monitor. I took a breath, closed my laptop, and called my attorney. "Nathan," I said when he picked up, "I need you to look into acquiring a recruiting firm, Halverson Executive Search, based in Chicago. I want to know everything about their financial structure, their client base, their revenue model, and whether they're currently for sale." There was a pause. "Is this about something personal?" Nathan asked cautiously. "Completely personal," I said. "And I want it done quietly. My name is Victoria Chin, and I'd spent the last 15 years building one of the most successful executive coaching practices in the country. I had a client roster that included Fortune 500 CEOs, political leaders, and entrepreneurs who paid me $75,000 per month for ongoing advisory services. I had a waiting list 6 months long. I had written 3 best-selling books about leadership development and executive presence. I had a net worth approaching $200 million. But apparently I had that unmotivated energy. The truth was, I had actually been interested in that executive coaching position. Not because I needed the money or the job title, but because I'd spent so much of my career working with clients who were disconnected from the actual implementation of coaching, who hired consultants without understanding what real transformation looked like, and I wanted to get back to direct client work. I wanted to be in the trenches again, seeing real change happen in real time. I'd applied for the position because it seemed like it would be a good fit. Marcus Halverson had rejected me in 45 seconds without letting me explain any of that. Nathan called me back within 3 hours. "Halverson Executive Search is not for sale," he said. "But they're also not doing well. Their revenue is down about 30% year over year. They have significant debt from an expansion into 3 new markets that didn't work out. Their founder, Marcus Halverson, owns 70%. The remaining 30% is split among 3 silent partners who are increasingly unhappy about the company's performance." "Can we acquire it?" I asked. "If you're willing to pay a premium for a struggling business in order to own a grudge, yes," Nathan said carefully. "But Victoria, that's not a smart financial move." "I'm not asking if it's smart," I said. "I'm asking if we can do it." "We can do anything if we're willing to pay enough," Nathan said. "But I want to be clear, this looks like revenge. And revenge acquisitions have a way of becoming complicated." "I'm not seeking revenge," I said. "I'm making an investment in a lesson." It took 4 months to acquire Halverson Executive Search. The 3 silent partners were thrilled to have someone willing to pay 20% above market value for their shares. Marcus Halverson was less thrilled, but he was also overextended and desperate. The acquisition closed in late October. I became the majority shareholder of Halverson Executive Search. I let Marcus keep his job for exactly 1 month. I came into the office on his first day under new ownership, introduced myself as the new CEO, and informed him that we would be undergoing a comprehensive operational audit. The audit found exactly what I'd expected: sloppy practices, inflated fee structures, clients being matched with coaches based on availability rather than fit, and a revolving door hiring practice that resulted in a 70% annual turnover rate. It also found evidence that Marcus had verbally rejected candidates without documentation, made hiring decisions based on personal bias rather than qualifications, and had spent the last 2 years collecting paychecks while the company collapsed around him. On his last day, I called him into my office. "You're fired," I said simply. "On what grounds?" he demanded. "I built this company." "You built it into the ground," I said. And you're fired because I'm the owner now, and I don't want you here. You have until the end of business today to clean out your desk. You can't just fire me without cause, he said, his voice rising. I have a contract. Your contract is with the previous ownership structure, I interrupted. Under the new ownership structure, at-will employment terms apply to all positions. You're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out at 5 p.m. if you're not gone by then. He left my office sputtering, his face red, already planning his lawsuit, I'm sure. The lawsuit never materialized. Over the next 6 months, I completely restructured Halverson Executive Search. I fired half the staff and replaced them with actual professionals. I implemented rigorous client coach matching protocols. I created a training program for new coaches based on my own methodologies. I reduced the company's fee structure to be more competitive in the market. The company went from losing money to being moderately profitable within 8 months. Then I did something that surprised everyone. I reached out to Marcus Halverson. I have a proposal for you, I said in the email. If you're interested in discussing employment opportunities, please come to my office on Friday at 2 p.m. He showed up, confused, suspicious, and hopeful all at once. I'm offering you a position, I said once he was seated across from my desk. Director of Client Relations. It's a newly created role. You'll be responsible for maintaining relationships with our major clients, ensuring client satisfaction, and identifying opportunities for service expansion. The salary is $85,000 per year. You report directly to me. Why would you offer me a job? Marcus asked. You fired me. Because I want you to understand something, I said. I want you to work here and watch what a well-run organization looks like. I want you to see the practices that actually work. And I want you to spend every single day working for someone you rejected, building a career that depends on my goodwill. That's revenge, Marcus said quietly. Yes, I agreed. But it's also an opportunity. You rejected me without listening to me. You made a judgment about my motivation based on a 30-second video call. You treated me like I was beneath your consideration. And now I'm going to give you the opportunity to work hard and prove yourself to me, just like everyone else I hire. And if I don't want to? Marcus asked. Then you can leave, I said. But you'll spend the next 5 years working your way up from nothing, trying to rebuild a career that has a significant gap in it. Or you can take this position, work hard, show me that you're capable of learning from your mistakes, and maybe eventually rebuild something resembling professional credibility. Marcus took the job. For the first 3 months, Marcus was unbearable. He was resentful, sullen, and made it clear that he thought this was beneath him. He did the minimum required work. He questioned my decisions. He seemed to believe that taking a lower-level position was a temporary punishment before he'd be restored to his rightful place. Then I made him sit in on one of my coaching sessions with a major client, a Fortune 500 CEO who was struggling with delegation and perfectionism. I watched him watch me work. I watched him realize that everything he'd been doing wrong at Halverson Executive Search, the snap judgments, the lack of curiosity, the assumption that he already knew everything, was precisely the opposite of how professional coaching actually worked. After that day, something shifted. Marcus started showing up early. He started reading my books. He started asking thoughtful questions about client work. He started understanding that the position I'd given him wasn't a punishment. It was an education. 6 months in, he asked to take my coaching certification course. I approved it. I didn't pay for it. He paid for it himself, but I approved his participation and gave him time off to attend. He finished the course and started assisting with client coaching sessions. His work was competent, careful, and genuinely interested in client transformation. It was nothing like the snap judgment artist who'd rejected me in 45 seconds. A year after I'd acquired Halverson Executive Search, Marcus came to my office and asked for a meeting. I owe you an apology, he said, sitting across from me. Multiple apologies, actually. For rejecting you. For the way I treated you when you were hired. For assuming I was smarter than I actually was. I know, I said. I've been thinking about that day, Marcus continued. When you called me on the video, I rejected you in 45 seconds. I didn't give you a chance to explain yourself. I made a judgment based on, I don't even know what. Some vibe I thought I detected. Some assumption I made about what motivated people. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I want you to know that I understand now, he said. I understand what I did. I understand that I treated someone who was genuinely interested in something with contempt. And I understand that the person I rejected has turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to my career. I waited. I wanted to ask if you would consider promoting me to Vice President of Operations, Marcus said. I know that's not something you owe me. I know I don't deserve it. But I wanted to ask anyway. No, I said. Marcus's face fell. Not yet, I continued. Prove yourself for another year. Show me that your transformation is genuine and not just performative because you're scared of losing your job. Show me that you've actually learned something from this experience. Then we'll talk about promotion. Okay, Marcus said quietly. That's fair. 18 months after I'd acquired the company, Marcus was promoted to Vice President of Operations. He'd earned it through work, not through my vindication, and that distinction mattered to both of us. The company, under our combined leadership, went from being a struggling acquisition I bought for vengeful reasons to being one of the most respected recruiting firms in the executive coaching space. We were placing coaches with Fortune 500 companies. Our client satisfaction rate was 97%. Our revenue had increased by 400%. I never told Marcus the full extent of my strategy. I never told him that I'd planned to make this acquisition when he hung up on me. I never told him that every difficult moment he'd experienced working for me was intentional. But I think he understood anyway. 2 years after the acquisition, Marcus and I were sitting in the office, reviewing quarterly reports, when he said something that surprised me. If you hadn't bought this company, he said, I would probably still be doing what I was doing, making snap judgments about people, hanging up on candidates I should have listened to, building a company into the ground. I would have been the same person, just with less money. Yes, I said. That's probably true. So thank you, he said, for buying this company, for firing me, for hiring me back, for forcing me to become better. I smiled. You're welcome. But I want to ask you something, Marcus continued. Why did you do it? You could have just let me fail. You could have bought this company and fired me and moved on. Why did you give me a second chance? I considered the question carefully. Because I wanted you to understand that rejection doesn't mean worthlessness, I said finally. You rejected me, and I could have taken that as a judgment on my value. But I didn't. I took it as a judgment on you. And I wanted you to have the opportunity to correct that judgment, to become someone different than the person who would reject someone in 45 seconds. Did I succeed? Marcus asked. You're still here, I said. You're still learning. You're still becoming better than you were. That's not success yet. That's just the beginning of it. 3 years after the acquisition, Halverson Executive Search had become the premier recruiting firm for executive coaches in the country. My own coaching practice had expanded to include a training program for coaches based on the firm's resources. I was working less and strategizing more. I could have sold the company for a significant profit. I probably should have, from a purely financial perspective. But I didn't. I kept it because it had become something valuable. Not because of my ownership, but because of what my ownership had forced to happen, a complete transformation of how the company operated, and a complete transformation of Marcus Halverson himself. He never did tell me whether he thought I'd bought the company because of how he'd rejected me. I never explicitly confirmed it. But there was an understanding between us, an acknowledgement that sometimes the best education comes from experiencing consequences. Sometimes the best lesson is learning that the woman you rejected in 45 seconds was building an empire while you were hanging up on her. And sometimes, just sometimes, that woman decides that your education is worth more than your humiliation. That was the real investment I'd made. Not in acquiring a company, but in acquiring a human being's capacity to change. And in that, at least, I'd received every penny's worth.